Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to use our hacked web page finder tool. So this tool will scan every page on your website and look for any signs that there might be some sort of hack of your website happening. Now often people will see a sudden drop in their rankings on Google, and sometimes they will mistakenly think, oh, it's just an algorithm change, and because websites do have traffic and ranking swings over time, but sometimes it's a bit more sinister, and perhaps because for example, your WordPress is out of date, or you've used a plugin that has a vulnerability, it's allowed someone to get into your hosting where your website is and do something to your website that has caused it to drop in the rankings. So sometimes what hackers can do is they can inject hidden links into your home page or any other page to increase the rankings of another website. They can also redirect users to other websites. They can inject crypto miners. There's lots of things they can do that you don't want to do on your website, because it can cause you a drop in your search engine rankings. So before we start going through the settings to show you the tool in action, it's just worth noting that the tool is quite sensitive in the sense that it will pick up things that are probably false positives, and then it's your job to look at them and see if that is an issue or not, and if it's not, you can remove it from the list and then carry on working your way through things that are potential issues. It's designed like that so that it doesn't miss any actual real hack signals, hack signs, if that makes sense. So just be aware when you scan your website, if something shows up, it doesn't necessarily mean that you've been hacked, it's just showing you something to check, and then you can go and look at it in manually and in better detail and see if it's actually an issue or not. So before we show you this on a real website that's been hacked and what results it'll show you, we'll just run through these settings because they're quite technical and there's quite a lot of them. So generally speaking, I probably just leave them as they are, but we'll go through them and I'll explain what each one does. So automatically trust well-known domains. So we created a massive list of trusted domains. So if we ever see, for example, an external bit of JavaScript that's been called into your website, we'll check the domain, and if it's a trusted domain, we won't flag it. But if it's quite a unknown domain, then possibly we might flag it depending on the rest of your settings here. But if we find a potential issue and then it turns out it's related to a domain that we trust, we won't show you that issue. So this is a setting where every time we check a page on your website, we'll scan it as a normal user, but then we'll also scan it as the Google search engine, because when that crawls your website, sometimes hackers can make different things happen depending on whether it's Google loading your website or a normal user loading your website. So if you have that setting on, it will compare the HTML and it will flag even the tiniest of difference. But I would generally leave that off, because for a lot of websites, when you load them, the HTML, each time you load a page, is slightly different, and you don't want every single page to be flagged with a difference if you've got that setting on. So check for doorway pages. So that's when we will compare what the content shown to Google is like versus what the content the user sees, and if they are significantly different, so not just a few characters different because of something that might be slightly different on every page load, if they're significantly different, then we'll flag it as a potential doorway page. Next, check for outbound malicious links. So we'll check all outbound links that we find on your website against Google's safe browsing database of malicious domains. So check for user redirects. So when we crawl your website, if we're redirected off-site somewhere, we'll flag that as a potential issue to check. Most of the time, those off-site redirects are fairly innocent and they're not an issue, but we'll flag it for you just to double check anyway. And that'll be server-side 301 redirects, and we'll look for possible client-side, so JavaScript, metadata, meta tag redirects as well. So here, check for malicious redirects. So that's sort of similar to the user redirects setting, but here we'll only flag it if it's a redirect off-site and the domain we're flagging it to has been flagged as malicious by Google. So here we have check HTML, JavaScript for any malicious URLs. So here we'll extract all the external JavaScript, and we will check if any of those domains that you're loading external JavaScript from have been flagged as malicious by Google. Next, check for off-site iframes. So if we find any iframes that are pointing off-site, sometimes that can be malicious, but obviously we'll exclude common iframes like Facebook and stuff like that. Next, we have check for hidden iframes. So when we find an iframe, we'll check if it's shown for a user but hidden for Google, or the other way around, hidden for Google, shown for a user. Sometimes that's a possible sort of hack there, where the hacker is redirecting normal users off-site or doing something dodgy with an iframe. So that's one way we can potentially pick that up. So check for iframes with malicious source. So that's if the source tag is pointing to a domain that's been flagged by malicious as Google. Next, check for web push notification API usage. So if you're using push notifications on your website, you probably want to disable that, because if you have a legitimate use for it, that's absolutely fine. But if you don't use it, I would keep that checked, and then we will check your source code to see if there's any push notification usage, because sometimes when a website is hacked, hackers can try and get people to sort of subscribe to their sort of malicious alerts through web push usage. Next, check for affiliate links. So sometimes when websites are hacked, people will drop in affiliate links, and they'll redirect users off-site to even sometimes websites like Amazon, but with their affiliate link so that they get commission. Next, we have obfuscated JavaScript. So if we see any JavaScript that looks like it's deliberately been designed so that it's hard for people to understand what it's doing, then we'll flag that. Sometimes that's not malicious, sometimes that's just developers protecting their source code, but we'll flag it anyway, and then you can take a closer manual look at it. Next, we'll check for any offsite JavaScript at all, and obviously recommend having the trusted domain setting above, or that's probably going to flag loads of stuff that's absolutely fine. Next, we'll check for hidden backlinks. So if we see a backlink that's visible to Google but not visible to a normal user, or the other way around, we'll flag that as a potential issue. We'll also look for backlinks that are hidden using CSS. So when a normal user loads the page, they can't see that backlink, but when a search engine loads it, it'll see the backlink, because that's often something hackers do. They inject backlinks to manipulate search engine rankings. Next, we have check for foreign languages. So if you have a website and you have a legitimate use to have foreign languages like Russian, Chinese, Japanese, etc., then you'll probably want to disable that setting. But if you have no reason to have any sort of foreign languages or foreign characters on your website, then keep that checked, because often when a website's hacked, it'll be like Chinese gambling websites or something, and there'll be a bunch of Chinese characters on your website, but sometimes they can be hidden, and this check will try and find them. Next, we have check for common hacked signatures. So Sometimes when hackers hack a website, they'll leave something in the source code that says, like, hacked by elite hacker or something like that. So we'll check for those sort of text signatures. Next, we'll check for blocked pages. So are there any pages that a normal user is getting blocked on? Because that might be an attempt for the website owner to stop a hacked page being visible, but then they might let Google through, again, to sort of Google to crawl those hidden links or something like that. Next, we'll check for potentially malicious file types. So can we find any reference to exe files or bat files or command files, jar files, etc. In the HTML. Next, check for spammy content. So this is quite an important one. This is the one that you'll probably see the most results for if you've had a hack on your website. We will use a list of words which are actually editable underneath to see if a page appears spammy. Often when websites are hacked, it's not just links that are injected, sometimes entirely new pages are created, and they'll contain things, references to like Viagra and gambling and stuff like that. Next, check spammy outbound links. So we'll check all the outbound links, we'll gather them all up, and then we'll scan them. We'll scan to see what content is on those outbound linked websites to see if you're linking to anything that looks like a gambling website or a payday loan website or a pharmacy website, something like that. And then we have the list of editable spam words here. So if you own a website that is in the finance niche, for example, then you'll want to untick that, because otherwise all these finance words might flag a page as being spammy on your website, when it's not really. It's just your website might be about payday loans or getting credit or something like that. And the same goes for adult content and pharmacy content. And then finally, we just have the amount of concurrent connections you want to scan the website with. So if you know it's not going to block IP address, then you can crank it up to 10. But if you're unsure, I'd leave it at like 5 or 3 or something like that, just so our scanner doesn't get blocked by your website because we're downloading too many pages too quickly. So now we've gone through all the options. I'm going to show you this website here that we're going to scan, because I know it's a plumbing website that's been hacked, and we'll show you the results. So we started the scan, and we come back a few minutes later, and you can see we've scanned 189 pages on this website as both a normal user and Googlebot. And we've got some really interesting results to look at here. So we can see here that this page has been flagged, and we can see that it's been flagged because of spammy on-site content. Now, if you can't remember exactly what that is, you can click there and it will give you a brief overview, and we'll also try and explain what exactly we found there in the description. So you can see when we crawled as a normal user, we found content on this page that might be spammy because it's in the gambling niche. Here are the words that trigger the potential spam classification. So you can see this page, that's obviously a gambling page, isn't it? And then you can see there's tons of, even the home page has been flagged. And if we look at the HTML, we can see there's tons and tons of references to gambling stuff. So that's actually an internal link, but I would guess that that's actually a hidden link, because if we go back to the home page and we search for that, we can see it's been found, but where is it? It's hidden. So you can see that's the sort of thing that we're looking for on these hacked websites. So hopefully you can see that you can point this tool at any website that's having issues ranking or you're seeing strange stuff on, and it will scan every page checking for tons of weird stuff that hackers do and malicious activity, and it's quite sensitive, so it should pick up anything they do. So you will have to deal with some false positives, and you can just click the remove buttons here to get rid of any false positives so they're not in the report, and then just work your way through there and manually inspect anything the tool flags up. So hopefully this tool helps you if your website has been hacked and you've had a big drop in rankings. And as always, thank you for watching.